started looking for a wedding planner. So who did I find for you? Miss Veronica Alexandra, who's an awesome sister, has her own business, and the name of her business is Blue Ivy Planning, Event Planning. So she is here with us today. Welcome, Miss Alexandra. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Miss Hicks. I'm so excited to be here. Really, I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Now, Veronica, I saw on your website it said Blue Ivy. So, everybody in the world now is looking for Blue Ivy, but it's not quite the Blue Ivy that I thought about, and that's that beautiful baby girl that Jay-Z and Beyonce just had. I can imagine your business has peaked a little bit here due to that name. Where did that name come from?
There's a lot of reasons as to why I chose that name. I think ultimately, originally when I opened up the business, it was technically honed in on weddings versus all sorts of events. And so when we were thinking about weddings, we were thinking about how that would kind of represent itself or resonate. And so something borrowed, something blue was the initial reaction to where I came up with blue. I also wanted color. Blue is a very powerful name, word, corporate-wise. It's the number one color for corporate coloring. I love the way it comes out of the mouth. It basically represents all sorts of inspiration if you actually read the description and the definitions behind blue. And there's actually also an ivy that's a flower that only grows very rarely, and it turns blue. And they basically it's from this author named Novalis who talks about it, and ultimately he talks about the fact that this flower, since it's so rare, it's extremely inspirational. And, as an event planner, my whole job is to produce celebrations, also creating inspiration. So this went really well. Ivy has a lot to do with the fact that we're ultimately focusing on growth. And ivy grows on walls, and it ultimately turns into this intertwining relationship, the way relationships do, the way corporate products want to kind of excel and grow and learn and expand. And it's also very romantic. It also grows on Ivy League buildings. And so it just had a lot of different representations as to what I kind of resonated with and was very proud of. And the word Blue Ivy is nice and short, and it's beautiful.
It is absolutely. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
I want to say congratulations for your recent accolades. Apparently you have the best of the weddings. Tell me about that. The Knot 2012.
Yeah, I think ultimately the way the Knot does it, the Knot is a very powerful, for those who don't know, it's a very powerful reference tool, as well as a blog, as well as a magazine publication that kind of shares all of the information for brides and grooms and couples of any type to ultimately be looking for resources for their wedding. And so it's a very powerful opportunity for vendors like myself to kind of show validation and to kind of show that we take our business seriously. And I believe the way they do it is they actually have a random survey from brides who have either worked with us, fell in love with us, saw our work, etc. And it's, I believe, sent out nationally. And we receive an email eventually saying congratulations that you were picked and voted. And so, yeah, we got chosen to be top of the 2012 for wedding planners. And I believe there's maybe, 5 or 8 in Massachusetts, which is where technically we are based and where we won. So, yeah, it's very exciting. It obviously just proves that we're interested in showing the fact that we're competitive, that we're trendsetters, that we're explosive, that we come up with funky ideas, that we're taken seriously, that we're professional, that we offer everything possible for wedding planning from, small packages to larger packages, and that we try our hardest and pull our wholehearted soul into this.
Awesome. So now let me ask you this. How far in advance should a person start to plan in their wedding? I was really hoping. I had another lady that was going to come on, but unfortunately she had some troubles that came about. But she met her husband, her fiance, on Christmas Day, and they are now planning their wedding, and they're getting married in June. So I'm just wondering, how far in advance should a person start?
So by default, if I was going to answer this in a one-liner, I would say 1 year. With that said, I'm not going to sit there and say that there's a rule to the story, otherwise you're just going to be screwed. What it really boils down to is that the more time you get and the more time you give yourself, the more opportunity you have to not compromise on the vendors that you're interested in, such as the fact that if you're getting married in 2 months from now and you decide today I'm getting married in 2 months, the chances of you finding a vendor that's available that you fell in love with, they're probably booked. The other risk or non-risk is based on season. If someone's getting married in June, that's a very, very competitive month. If someone's getting married in September, that's a very, very competitive month. But if they're getting married in December or January where it's snowing and there's potential blizzards, then you could kind of relax as far as finding vendors that you're going to fall in love with because they're probably available. So there's a difference in season as far as when you should be concerned. But if you are going to compete, just to give you a small example statistically, just in Boston proper alone, which is a city that's a tiny metropolitan city compared to New York City and Los Angeles and Miami, but Boston alone, just in the parameters of its city, has 8,000 couples getting married just in the city alone in season. And what that really boils down to is 8,000 couples with the same budget as you, which are not going to all have the same budget, but the group in there, the caliber of people who have your same vision, your same date, and your same budget, you're going to be competing against them, whether you like it or not, or whether you want to, acknowledge it. It's a situation where ultimately you find out from a vendor, well, we have this other couple, they're interested in us, they've already inquired, they just have to put down the deposit, so do you want to book us, yes or no? And that brings on a little bit of the pressure, which is kind of why the industry has a little bit of a rat race concept to it, which is not exactly appealing. But that's what also makes this industry very inflated and very in demand, and also makes vendors also very in demand as far as competitive. So it's very important to recognize the priority you have as your wedding. If your wedding's super cash and you're trying to make a casual, calm wedding where you're not trying to institute all of these classic categorical pieces that usually get implemented into your wedding, you're probably not going to flip out when you find out that half these vendors are taking because you're not really going to hire them anyway. But if you want the classic wedding that usually involves about 65 different projects, and what I call a project, anything that has to do with hiring your vendors, so a photographer, a videographer, your cake, your caterer, your venue, those are all categories. 65 of those will happen before you walk down that aisle. And should you be doing that, well, the less time you give yourself, then the less probable vendors that you're extremely interested in will probably be available.
Okay. So how do you choose a wedding planner? Because I tell you, my sister got married many moons ago, and her wedding planner was like sergeant of arms. It became not fun. And she felt like the Wicked Witch of the West. And I'm so sorry, ma'am, if you're listening, but that's how we felt. But and I hear in your voice, it sounds like you're very organized and you're kind of like, But for a person like me that's kind of free-spirited and like to have a good time, how do I choose a wedding planner?
Here's, I always tell prospective clients, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, regardless of the fact of whether you find a wedding planner who you find to be super talented or to be affordable for you, do you have the chemistry with her? Because frankly, if you're going to hire someone who's got that elite brand around them, I don't care about their brand. At the end of the day, are they a total stale crouton who's going to be super boring and really much actually make you feel awkward when you're hanging out with them? Or can you actually open up and be personable with them where you can actually tell them the truth and they can kind of fend for you? Ultimately, I'm in the business of producing celebrations and being in an invested business for the client. So, you all have clients where, like, their mom is really the one getting married here, even though it's their daughter walking down the aisle. And, I need to be that person on behalf of the bride or behalf of the groom who's going to be able to kind of be that soundboard in privacy, as well as kind of like your advisor and your psychiatrist and your psychologist and your best friend. And, the first thing I always pitch to my clients are, let me tell you something, I'm going to be your best friend and we're going to hang out for 1 year. And if you really don't like me, you really should consider that, because it's about how you want to be spoken to. If you don't want to hear the truth, then I'm not that girl. I'm very open to saying to you, you know what, your hairdo, it's pretty, but this is probably not the most flattering for your face. And that's the big difference, how involved you want to get with someone. And I'm not really here to live vicariously through everyone else in the wedding world so that my clients have to do my wedding. Meaning, when we plan a wedding, we're doing it to transform your vision, not mine. And it's very important to recognize a planner who can understand translating what it is that you're trying to do into your money and turning your money into something that's going to create that vision that represents your personality. Other planners really don't want to hear about what it is that you want, and ultimately they want to plan the wedding that they want to plan because they're competitive and they want to make sure that they're going to get published. So it's their way or the highway, and some brides and some couples don't recognize that as a problem until they're experiencing the controversy or the conflict with their planner. There's other pieces to it. You need to know about availability. Does your planner have time to meet with you? Is she taking on too many clients where she dilutes her own performance? Because if she takes on too many clients and she's not available for you, she's going to have to take on 40 people for the same dollar that if we just charge a little more, we can substitute that same amount of money to give you more time, which you definitely deserve and require in order to get this wedding done on time. It takes roughly 120 to 150 hours to plan a wedding if you're trying to do something for real. And so it's very important to understand that we're going to be investing a lot of time with you, and you're going to want to deal with that person that you adore. So for me, it's a personality thing, to be honest with you.
Well, I just heard you say that you become their friend, a psychiatrist, and I can relate to that because my hairstylists, they are my sounding board. But do you ever have to stop and say, wait a minute, hold on, you may need to go and seek some help before we move forward? Or what is your position on that when you see that?
I think ultimately what I try to do is mediate between kind of communicating metaphorically on behalf of the couple or on behalf of the parents or on behalf of whatever the third party is that's causing the issue. The other thing is, we do have a bridezilla clause, and that's, it's kind of funny to some, but if I'm going to hang out with you for a year and plan your wedding, which I'm in the business of having positive planning experiences, I'm not in the business of becoming Dr. Phil and actually getting yelled at. So in many ways, it's very important that my experience is positive for you because I'm here to create one of the most important days of your life. And the last thing I'm going to be is your punching bag. So should there be a threshold that they kind of tap into, it kind of crosses our border on our contract, and we technically have the right to dismiss you. But should I have the opportunity to kind of help you understand, don't ruin your relationship with your mother over this wedding? Yeah, I'm going to help you wholeheartedly. Totally.
Well, I would be remiss to talk about the budget because you just said that, and I know money is tight. So, what are some of the solutions to consider that can optimize your budget?
Ultimately, depending on your budget, should you have what people consider a tight budget, which means you're probably not able to grab every single venue of choice of your, first top 3 list. The thing to recognize is, one, season. If you can do off-season, you're going to save. If you can do a Friday or Sunday or even a weekday, you're seriously going to save. If you're going to do a 3-day weekend, you're not going to save anything. So you start learning about the differences as far as when to do it. The other thing is you really need to recognize how many people you definitely want to invite to your wedding. Do you need to invite the whole planet, or can you really invite the people who would wholeheartedly, genuinely deserve to be there, and should everyone else not be invited and have a hissy fit over it, then they're probably not true friends, and they're just having entitlement issues. The third piece really has to do with the location. If you can go in the outskirts of a city, even if it's like 5 minutes over the outskirt, you're going to win. As far as getting more for your bang for your buck. And the other piece is, should you not be able to afford something that's inside of the city that you're interested in getting married in, then maybe you should consider buying out a restaurant. Restaurants, believe it or not, have a much smaller minimum as far as what they require to be financially paid to have the whole house to yourself. And that really suits a lot of people, especially if you find modern restaurants, vintage looking or chic or old style or, historical or whatever. You can still find a theme that you can reckon with and ultimately financially afford all of the things that you wanted to transform anyway, but you don't need to be in a ballroom. So there's definitely those pieces, and there's also do-it-yourself projects. A lot of people find that they have connections in photography or videography, which is great, then they can hire a vendor that's going to be a little cost-effective. But additionally, they can find ways to do projects themselves. Instead of hiring someone to design their invitation, they can go online themselves. Instead of creating a favor that's going to have, someone make something personalized and custom, bake cookies and have the letter of your last name, being created, or create something that has to do with some sort of homemade card or invitation or donation. Things that are a little bit more cost effective that are still going to represent the fact that we're grateful for your attendance and we want to recognize the fact that you were here today. So there's all sorts of small cutting around the bush in order to make sure that you're still getting all of the pieces across, but you're not going the mainstream way. And obviously, if you have bridesmaids and groomsmen, for the love of the concept, use them. Because a lot of people are like, yeah, these are my bridesmaids, but they really didn't do anything until like the day of they're holding your flowers. Mm-hmm. They want to come. They want to have the pizza party with the wine glasses and bake and create little cards and cut little favors and do save the dates. It's not a problem. They want to feel that they're being a supportive friend. And that's their job as a bridesmaid. So in many ways, use your friends. They'll probably find something for you that'll be cost-effective as well. And often enough, your friends will also be your photographer, etc. Do I recommend that? Not always. It could be very sticky. It could be very hairy. It could actually also cause you to lose a friend if they screw up. So you need to be ready for those types of situations. You need to prepare them. You need to have different expectations. There's all sorts of pieces to this where you need to be a little bit less involved as far as, using your friends unless you understand the relationship and what it is that you're not expecting from them and that you're not going to be disappointed that the fact that it is more of a friend versus a professional. So, but all in all, you can absolutely hands down cut corners in every single direction. And my final tip to that is don't be afraid to ask. Like, ask a vendor, is this the lowest you will go? Period. And I guarantee you they're going to bring you something lower, or they're going to bring in something that's going to be free, or they're going to bring in something that has to do with, well, if you buy this, then we'll give you this, But sometimes you just need to ask. A lot of people don't ask.
Well, if I would like to ask you before we go, I am going to a destination wedding this summer. My niece is getting married in Dominican Republic, and kisses to you guys if you're listening. What can we expect when we go over? In 2 sentences or less, because we are right at the end.
Sure. What can you expect as far as when you arrive there?
A destination wedding. I've done all kinds of weddings, but never a destination wedding.
Destination weddings have this understanding that you're going to have an experience that has to do with a very specific culture. Ultimately, if your couple that is inviting you over is doing something gracious enough or being a strong host, they're going to have opportunities for you to understand the city. They're going to be a little bit more involved with sharing with you about the town and what you can do to get involved there and to ultimately understand where to explore. Hotel accommodations, car blocks, opportunities to understand little touring, travel, trolleys, car trips, discounts. Those types of things are generally offered. But furthermore, it's really a matter of hoping that you find an opportunity, like going to the DR, to have a wedding that's going to bring in that charm. And I think that allows you to feel the authentication versus bringing the charm to the United States. So it's really a question and an opportunity for charm and escape.
Wow, and I'm looking forward to it. Well, Veronica, I thank you so much for coming on the show. I would love to have you on and have some more time with you. But again, thanks for all the hard work you're doing out there. And by the way, the pictures are absolutely fabulous on your website. Guys, you should check it out. So you have a good rest of the day, ma'am.
I appreciate it, Miss Hex.
All right, lady. And I'll talk to you real soon, okay?
Have a good one. Take care. Thanks again.
All right, sweetie. Dustin, this has been another Psych Radio show.
Yes, ma'am. Good one.
Produced by Zeus Radio Show. And the song that you are about to go out on is I Will Always Love You. Whitney, we will always love you. Thank you for all the work that you've done, the hard work, and the life that you live. I pray that it helps someone and then you save somebody's life. You guys have a good one.
The views and issues discussed are not that of the host, but that of the guests and callers.